Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the big matches which took place in the EPL over the weekend. Big winners, Arsenal, of course, and also Manchester United getting the job done versus a Southampton team. Now, joining me this evening to review these matches and to talk some EPL football. Also, to look ahead to the Champions League, we have returning to the podcast, Christoph.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, Christoph, it was another exciting weekend of football action, I must say. And big winners, Arsenal getting the job done versus Spurs. But for me, Christoph, I have to start at Anfield. That was a shock defeat for Liverpool. Talk to us about that one. I really did not see that one coming, in all honesty. I thought it would have been a routine win for Liverpool, but it was not to be. Denied by Nottingham Forest.
I agree. It was definitely a shock loss to me. Brilliant strike by Callum Hudson-Odoi, but I feel we have to say it's the same issue as last season for Liverpool, where they had a number of chances. You would probably say guilted chances that were not capitalized on in that game, and it could have easily have been 2-0, to be honest. But
Possibly, yes,
but
definitely. I mean, dominated possession, but not a lot of chances really being created, in all honesty. I recall Jota had a decent chance to go 1-0 up, but apart from that Jota chance, nothing too clear cut, in all honesty. Half chances here or there, but for the dominance in terms of possession, there was little in the form of creation.
um, even if you say Liverpool didn't create anything, Liverpool had 6 shots on target, and at least 3 of them should have been goals, to be honest. So for me, it's not necessarily the creation of chances, it's the taking of chances. That's the issue. And it's an issue that we saw last season as well. That is something that needs to be sorted out for Liverpool to challenge for the title. Not to say that Liverpool won't score goals. They
Right?
will. They did last season. They
Yeah.
have players who are capable of scoring goals, and we know Salah is a goal machine. The problem is in these games where you really should be winning, they seem to be struggling to finish the chances, not create chances. They're getting chances, they're just not finishing them. We saw it cost them potentially a FA Cup spot last season against United. Um, Back to back, as a matter of fact. We saw it against,
Well,
I
for
mean,
sure.
we saw it against Atalanta last season, not scoring the chances presented. So it's something that Slack will probably have to work with the players. I mean, it's something that could have been alleviated potentially in the transfer market, dipping and getting a proper striker and not depending
Well,
on
I'm not sure if that would have been the solution, in all honesty. I mean, a number of strikers are there at Liverpool, Darwin Núñez, Jota. But as you say, it's a case of taking the chances, really. For me, though, for this particular game, I somewhat disagree with you in that I did not really see many clear-cut chances. And to me, that was the issue in this game in particular. For the amount of possession that Liverpool had, there weren't many clear-cut chances. The keeper had a easy day, I would say, playing at Anfield in front of the cup. You would have expected that this Nottingham Forest team would have been under some serious pressure to keep Liverpool out. But to me, that was never the case. It was a very lethargic performance, lots of backwards and sideways passes, but not much in the form of penetration. And to me, that is the issue that Slot is going to have to deal with this season. What do you do when a team come and hunkers down? What do you do when all 10 men are behind the ball? He is new to the English league and he has now gotten a taste of defeat. As I mentioned earlier, teams probably needed a bit of time to figure out this Liverpool team. And of course, uh, the coach over there at Nottingham Forest has showed the blueprint now. So all other teams will be coming and looking at this blueprint that Nottingham Forest have laid down and will be looking to take advantage of this Liverpool team. But for sure, a shock result, Christoph, for me, in all honesty. I was quite shocked. I expected a normal day at the office for Liverpool, but it was not to be the case. And of course, these results are to be expected, the lofty expectations of what Liverpool have been over the last 4 or 5 years. Uh, we might just have to face reality and realize that it's a big rebuild at this point in time. But good start, poor defeat, shaking defeat, however. But it is what it is. It's the nature of the game. It's the nature of football, and that's why we play the game. But defensively, Liverpool have looked decent, I would say, having had a couple of clean sheets thus far. And this was just one of those games, they have to quickly pick up the pieces and get ready for that Champions League match coming up midweek, where they will take on AC Milan, I believe, former rivals in the Champions League, bring back memories of that come from behind win in Istanbul, so rich history there. So they have to quickly pick up the pieces and move into this Champions League. But the big match, Christoph, the big match, Arsenal answering the big questions. You yourself had big doubts over Arsenal's ability to take care of business versus Spurs. How are you feeling at this point in time, having gotten that victory over Spurs 1-0?
I mean, it's a good win, good victory, but I mean, this was just based on the performance. It was a very toothless Tottenham team, and it could be that we're seeing their ceiling has been met, and this is that's probably the level of performance that we can expect for them for the majority of the season, to be honest. Against tougher opposition and or rather tough opposition, coming midweek and then on the weekend again with Manchester City, it will be more of a challenge to see how Arsenal will play these games and what the results will be, to be honest. Tottenham, on the other hand, they look like they have some work to be done on the training ground. Um, they weren't they created chances. I mean, they had like what 9 shots, but like there was like 50% of the shots were off target. Arsenal created maybe 4 chances, and those were they. Like I said, Arsenal tends to create the quality chances, but they're not finishing them. Arsenal, it could have easily have been 3-0 to Arsenal, but
Mm.
we know
But I
Arsenal.
mean, a team like Arsenal, Christoph, only creating 4 chances against a toothless Spurs team, that must be some cause for concern, even though the winner came from a set piece. I mean, Arsenal seem to be one of the leading scorers as it relates to set pieces in the EPL, maybe over the course of the last 2 years. So there seemed to be a great emphasis on set pieces. Oftentimes we see the set piece coach coming up even on the touchline to give instructions. So that's a big emphasis, but only 4 chances against this toothless Spurs team. That must be some cause for concern. Or is it a case where Arsenal took a deliberate defensive approach to this one?
Um, Definitely, it's not a cause for concern, in my opinion. It was a deliberate approach set out by Arsenal and Arteta, and we saw it last season to great effect against Manchester City. We saw them beating Manchester City. We saw them beating not beating, but we saw them holding Bayern Munich. It's the approach Arsenal takes in some of these bigger games when they are more inclined to
But
be
is it the right approach
getting
though?
those results. Um,
Is it the right approach? I mean, you drew with City last season when City
we
was there for the taking,
we
and
drew with
they
City
went on to win the league by 2 points.
one
That
point.
two points loss could have been the difference in the title.
1 point. We drew with City at the Etihad. We beat City at the Emirates. So it's not a matter of is it the right approach. It
Mm.
is a good approach because Arsenal does create chances in these games. It's a matter of finishing those chances. That I think is the biggest flaw of the approach they've decided to take because they have done it to very good effect. We see that Arsenal has the best defense in the league. We saw it on display yesterday. We see it on display against a lot of teams. We saw it all last season. Arsenal has the best
So will
defense.
this be the approach versus Man City come next week? I mean,
I
weekend.
I,
Do
I
you think this will be a similar approach where it's more of a conservative approach, a more cautious approach, so to speak, rather than going to take the game to City?
I think that is what we can expect to see against Manchester City, especially with all the injuries that Arsenal have currently. I think
Well, I
they'll
mean,
take the same approach.
Rice should be back. at least.
Rice was never injured. Rice
Right.
was
He was
unfair,
suspended.
unjustly suspended. But Rice is back. Rice is back.
Right?
Fine.
So
No.
technically, in terms of your 11, really and truly, you're only missing one piece, which is in the form of Odegaard.
I mean,
Technically, I mean, if you were to put your best 11 out there, it would be Rice plus Odegaard. And right now, the only missing element is Odegaard. So, I mean, you're 90% there.
it's the
10% is missing from the team.
it's the start of a new season. We don't know what Arsenal's best 11 is this season as yet.
Yes, man, of course, of course.
We're
It's
missing
a
a
given.
number of players. Oh
It's the
no, no,
team which have
no.
been going out there the last 3 weeks. I mean, Jinsenko started at left back, but since
Mm.
Timber have come in, that is his position. It's the Timber show. Timber at left back. I mean, you can pretty much name the starting 11 for Arsenal. It's an easy call. I mean, the only questionable position I would say is on the left hand side of that attack, and we see possibly a rotation between a Trossard and a Martinelli. That's pretty much it. Kai Havertz up front, Saka on the right. And then, of course, you have your midfield three of Partey, uh, Odegaard, and Rice. That's pretty much it. The team picks itself, in my opinion. So, to me, the only missing element possibly going into this Man City game would be Odegaard, who is out injured. Rice is back from suspension. Should possibly start in the Champions League match against Atalanta as well, coming up midweek on Wednesday. How do you see that one playing out? Do you think Arsenal can get off to a flying start in the Champions League?
I'm not quite sure to be fair. I mean, they did beat up Liverpool last season, so it's a bit of a question mark. I can't remember in all the years of watching Champions League. I don't quite recall Arsenal ever playing Atalanta. It might be their first meeting. So I'm a bit unfamiliar with Atalanta's game for the most part, but I think Arteta might just play a conservative approach and look to hit on the counter attack and try and
Counter
get those.
attack, a possession-based team. Come on, Christoph. You have to go for these wins. I mean, the format of the Champions League have no change. It's more of a league format. So technically, you can afford to lose a game or two and still qualify for the knockout rounds.
No,
So I think Arsenal has
I
to go and take the game to Atalanta, a team like Atalanta who
I think teams will definitely I think majority of teams will be taking a more conservative approach in this format, especially because you're not playing teams over 2 legs. You don't have 2 legs to get your tactics correct, right? You only have one game, points are there. So I think more teams, majority, not all. I mean, you can expect the Real Madrid's, the Bayern Munich's, the Man City to go out and play attacking football, but I think for the majority of teams,
but
they're
why
going to
not
take.
Arsenal? Shouldn't Arsenal be in that category as well? Why
I,
wouldn't Arsenal go out and play attacking football?
I,
What makes them so different from the teams you just listed? The Man City, I mean, they were 2 points behind Man City. That's less than a game, pretty much separating these two teams in terms of quality. And of course, Arsenal has gone out and also strengthened. So this should be a stronger Arsenal team.
you would think that, but I mean that's not the case. We know that what Arsenal have is quality in the side, but they don't have the depth. So Arsenal, what will Arsenal do? Are they going to go out and put out their strongest 11 to play against Atalanta and then play that same 11 again on the weekend against Manchester City,
So you're
who has
expecting some rotation
two first
midweek then?
teams? Potentially, I'm expecting some
Well,
rotations.
yeah, which is the point I'm making that in this format of the Champions League, you can afford to lose a game or two. It will not be as detrimental as it once was before, where you had a group stage. No, it's more of a league format. So
I don't take that to
I
be
see
the
more
case.
teams rotating in this form of the Champions League, in all
I,
honesty. So,
I
for
did
example,
they
Liverpool plays AC Milan. I expect Slot to rotate the team. Probably Darwin Nunes comes in for a Jota. Salah may get a rest, give someone like a Gagpo a run out. So I expect in this early stage a bit of rotation, especially if you have a big game on the weekend, such as the Man City Arsenal clash.
to my knowledge, my understanding is that you are playing more teams, and basically each group is like a league, right?
Right?
You're playing less legs, but you're playing the same number of games, so there is still the same number of points to be won. Isn't that the case?
That is the case. However, it's the qualifying standards is different. So it's not a case where the top two team goes through. I believe it's probably the top six team or something like that that goes through. So it's a big group of teams that will advance to the knockout stages. So that's why I'm saying you can afford to lose a game or two. If you lose a game, it's not going to be detrimental to your advancement to the second round, as opposed to when it was a group stage where two teams would advance. And then, of course, the third place finisher would go to the Europa League. The format is somewhat different. So to me, teams will use the opportunity in the Champions League in this early phase to rotate their teams, as should be the case with the Arsenal. Arsenal has a big match versus Man City on the weekend. It would be unfathomable for Arteta to play his best 11 versus Spurs, his best 11 versus Atalanta, and then that same 11 versus Man City. He's not going to do that. To me, he's going to rotate the squad versus Atalanta and then have his best 11 fresh and ready to take on Man City. And I expect Pep to do the same, which Pep usually does in either case. So I expect teams, especially the English teams, which we are most familiar with, to do their rotations in this version of the Champions League if you do have a critical match on the weekend, just to give players a feel, as especially so early in the season as well. We're only 4 games into the season, approaching the fifth week. So players should still be fresh. But of course, you want to integrate fringe players and make everybody one feel a part of the squad, as well as try to get players into form. So I expect some rotation on the weekend from Arteta and the other English-based teams, in all honesty. But some other big results took place over the weekend as well, Christoph. I mean, yourself anticipated that Man U would fail to get the business done versus Southampton, but well, not to my surprise, I called them to win versus a Southampton team, and so said, so done. Granted, it could have been a different ball game had Southampton taken their chances, but it is what it is. Manchester United bouncing back from that Liverpool defeat with a win, and subsequent Liverpool having beaten United could not follow up, but lost to Nottingham Forest. The ball is round indeed, but were you impressed with this United performance, or this is to be expected, so to speak?
Um, I mean, obviously for me, it's a quite shocking result. I wasn't expecting United to bounce back and yeah, to bounce back away from home at that. But you're right. Had Southampton potentially scored that penalty, it might
Right.
have been a different game. I suspect the penalty save may have given Man U that that oomph, that extra that that extra gas in the tank to kind of get the job done. Rally them to the cause. But shocking, shocking.
Small margins,
Right.
It's the difference between a championship team and a perennial EPL team. It's
I
these
mean,
chances. You have to take your
there
chances.
was also a red card, so they kind of made that advantage pay.
Chances. It comes down to chances, Christoph. You can't be getting penalties and not scoring. It's as simple as that.
But
You know,
like I said, again for me, the most impressive player to me continues to be Garnacho. And for me, he must be the very first name on
but
that team sheet.
he's not getting into the starting 11. He's coming on
Uh,
almost playing the role of a super sub.
ridiculous, ridiculous.
Well, I
Garnacho,
mean, Ten Hag must be seeing something in training that we're not privy to.
Garnacho must be one of the first names on this spreadsheet, right beside Bruno Fernandes for me.
So
I
at
don't know
whose
what.
expense would you play Garnacho though?
Oh, well, Garnacho tends to play on the right hand side. Well, he seems to be able to play both, but majority of last season we saw him on the right hand side. So play him on the right. So whoever is playing on the right, you drop them.
So you're thinking of either dropping possibly a Rashford or a Ahmad, then,
I mean,
the youngster.
Rashford did score, but for me, Rashford does not deserve a spot in the starting lineup. Let him earn his place back in the team coming on from the
Well, I
bench.
mean, the scoring is one way of earning your
But
spot. So, I mean, that's
Garnacho
probably keeping him in the team.
Garnacho contributes every single game, goal or assist.
Mm. Well, I mean, you do have a point there. Possibly Ten Hag may wise up and you may see Garnacho in the starting 11 if these performances continue. But for sure, I expected a United win. You guys were saying not at all, Southampton would have been more prepared, but United getting the job done. So kudos to them for that. And, Ten Hag should be feeling a bit more secure in his position, which to me is good for the rest of the EPL. In all honesty, I don't think any EPL team wants to really see Ten Hag go. I personally just think he's not gonna be winning any EPL titles for Manchester United in the short to medium term future. So the longer he's there, the more comfortable I'll sit, knowing that United will be nowhere near to a title. But time is the master, time will tell. But Ten Hag getting another win, so kudos to them. But of course, Chelsea, Christoph, Sancho, former Manchester United man, picking up an assist on the weekend. How did you see that game versus a Bournemouth team, Chelsea
I
getting the business
mean,
done there?
technically he's still a Man United player. It's just on loan, if I'm correct.
Ah, indeed, indeed. Yes, yes, yes. So
Um,
similar deal to the deal with Sterling, or was the Sterling a permanent move?
no, Sterling was a loan deal.
Oh, a loan deal as well. So
Right,
both players are on loan deals.
right, correct.
Okay, got you. But yeah, he came on and picked up an assist. He looked a much happier player in Chelsea blue, and Chelsea picking up a little momentum, I must say. Seems like the coach has now found his best 11.
Um, I don't know. I mean, we know his best one, Cole Palmer, but best 11 at the moment. I think there's still some starting to be done there. As the league progresses a little more, I think
Right?
we'll probably see Chelsea's best 11. But I did expect a much better performance from them on the day. I expected more goals, but I mean maybe it was a difficult tie for them.
Yeah, and I mean,
Coming back
Bournemouth
from
is
the
no
international
pushover in
break,
all honesty. Playing away from home as well. Bournemouth at home, small grown. And again, there was a big penalty miss in that game as well, Christoph. So again, penalties, teams fail to take their chances and the result comes and bite you. So we know this is the EPL. Once you miss at the other end, 90% of the time you're punished for these misses when you miss glaring opportunities. And this was clearly the case for Bournemouth. Miss a big penalty. And so said, so done. Chelsea took advantage of that and came away with all 3 points. So for sure, Bournemouth will be licking their wounds, having not taken advantage of these chances which were created. And again, small margins. It boils down to small margins. We may look at it from a spectator point of view and see big money being paid to these players. And you're like, why are we paying so much money for this player? But when you look at it, it boils down to small margins. Players who take their chances. At the end of the day, you have to remember it's not how many chances you miss, it's how many chances you score. So even when you check the stats of the top goal scorer, you look at a Haaland. Haaland is not perfect. He is going to miss chances. However, when you look at the number of goals he scored, then you see why he is valued so much. So it's not how many you miss, it's how many you score. And ah, Haaland running away with the golden boots. It would seem, Christoph, I expected uh, a Brentford upset in that game, and it was on from the very first minute. Wissa getting on the end of a mix-up in that Man City defense and heading in the first minute, Christoph. I was like, yes, this is the start that Brentford needed. But that man again, Haaland coming up with a brace this time, and that is something we spoke about. I was saying he's not gonna be getting 3 hat tricks in a row, but he nearly
Uh,
did.
it was almost a third hat trick. So that was it was quality strikes in my opinion that he scored. He could have easily have gotten the hat trick, but Brentford kind of held out.
Yeah,
So
the keeper, their keeper, Flecken, really came up big with a number of huge saves. Some very good saves there from the Brentford keeper. The scoreline could have been much more embarrassing if not for the keeper. But uh Brentford gave it a run, but just could not find the winner. This is Man City, and once they scored that first goal, the writing was on the wall. Once Man City leveled in the first half, if Brentford was able to possibly hold out until halftime, where you could reorganize your strategies, button down defensively, possibly a draw might have been on the card, if not a victory, playing on the counter. But once that first goal went in and then Man City took the lead in the first half, then the writing was on the wall. I saw no comeback for Brentford, but definitely Wissa gave us a little hope in the first minute of the game. But that man Haaland, you could hand Haaland the golden boot from the fourth week of the competition. Christoph, he is way above the other players in terms of the number of goals. Can he be caught? Is the question.
I mean, it's still a long season. It remains to be seen. He does. The last two seasons he has started his scoring early, but we do see a drop off. Round between November to maybe January, February. So the question that is when players have that opportunity to kind of catch him. So we'll have to see. He does have a
I
he
don't see it
does drop
happening
off.
though, for sure. Barring a really long-term injury, I don't see any player in the EPL catching Haaland for that golden boot. Bar none, I don't see it happening. Unless he picks up some sort of long-term injury that keeps him out for 2, 3, 4 months. I don't see anyone else in the EPL even coming close to Haaland, in all honesty. Not even coming close. I think he is that good of a player, and he is playing in the perfect system, which seem to maximize his strengths. His movement, the touches he get. Oftentimes, that was one of the criticisms that he's not involved in the build-up play. But why do you need to be involved in the build-up? He is a finisher, and all he need is a look at goal, and he is lethal from inside that 18-yard box. And City have found the suppliers for him, the Kevin De Bruyne's, the Bernardo Silvas. The supply is coming and goals are flying in every week, it seems.
I
You know,
mean,
you
last season he did not score as many goals that as you would have expected. I mean, that could be down to the fact that De Bruyne was injured for a large chunk of the season, and this season we see De Bruyne fully fit and going. So it could be a case where that's making a huge difference for him.
Definitely, definitely. One of the games though, Christoph, which really caught my attention was Wolves versus Newcastle. And again, Newcastle finding the killer blow to take care of business versus Wolves. That was one of the tough games that we had anticipated, and so said, so done. Newcastle went down early, but I must give my kudos to Eddie Howe. He was proactive at halftime and rang the changes, which led to that Newcastle comeback. And a brilliant strike there from Barnes as well. Talk to us, Christoph. I mean, that game, how did you see that game? Newcastle up there with the big boys at this stage of the competition?
Honestly, I was actually expecting Newcastle to kind of drop points on this one, but they did get those two late goals to secure the victory. But I think more shocking than the Newcastle game was probably Crystal Palace Leicester City, with Leicester going ahead very early, and I thought it would have just been a wash for them, to be honest. But
Right,
Crystal
yeah,
Palace
yeah,
coming back.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I thought Crystal Palace was down and out as well. I
Right? I
thought
mean
Crystal Palace was down and out.
that last minute penalty really got it for them. But I mean, I thought they were out. Leicester had two early goals. Vardy. Um, I guess it's a customary goal for Vardy at this point, to be honest. But I
Well, the old man is still getting the job done, in all honesty. He is
I
still, to be honest, he has surprised me. He is back and getting in amongst the goals. I mean, he should at least get double figures in terms of goal returns. And that may be enough to keep Leicester City up. If Vardy is able to hit anywhere between 10 to 15 goals, to me, that will be enough to keep Leicester City in the EPL.
I mean, Jamie Vardy has always had what I would probably class as some ridiculous finishing, to be honest. Um,
Poacher, he's a poacher, man. He pops up at the right time, at the right place. A
right. So,
real goal poacher.
yeah, and that skill set has not diminished for him. His off the ball movement, pace
And
has
he
diminished somewhat, but the off the ball movement is still there, and the finishing
still
is still
quick enough
there.
to trouble defenders, I must say. It
Right,
has diminished somewhat, but still quick enough to trouble defenders.
right. But yeah, very good result for them because I honestly going into that game, I didn't think they would win that one.
Ah, yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with how that game played out, rough. I mean, they should be licking their chops, to be honest. They should have taken care of business. That one should not have gone to a 2-2 draw. Leicester having taken a two-goal lead should not make that one slip. It reminded me of the Everton game a couple weeks ago versus Bournemouth when Everton was leading by 2 goals to nil up to about what the 83rd, 84th minute. And Bournemouth found 3 goals to win that game. Luckily, in this case, Leicester was able to hold on for a draw, but definitely this was a big comeback for Crystal Palace and still haven't gotten their first win, but I believe 2 draws on the bounce now versus Chelsea and now versus Leicester. So Crystal Palace keep it ticking over, so to speak. But Christoph, what else did you see this weekend? I mean, did anything else surprise you, shock you? What can you say about this weekend's football action?
I mean, the next big thing that kind of shocked me wasn't did not take place in the Premier League. It was in the Eredivisie, where Heveren, I think it's pronounced, got 9-1. That's the team that Robin van Persie is the current manager. Picking
Oh,
up
so
9-1.
Heverin got 9-1 versus who? Who did they play?
Um, Altsmar, I believe it was.
Oh, AZ Alkmaar.
Right. A
Big result
shocking
there.
result. Shocking result.
Yeah, I
9-1 is
mean
that. Nine, I mean, losing is not shocking, but losing 9-1
right,
regardless
right.
is always a shocking
Yeah,
result.
in a top flight league as well. It's
Right.
not as if you're playing against a lesser division, but you're in the same league. So for sure, I mean, it happens at time. I recall, didn't Arsenal lose 8-1 to United one year or something like that?
No,
Was
no.
it? I know there was a big scoreline though. Was it
I
6-1 or?
I I think it was something like either 6-2 or 6-3.
Yeah, I mean, so it do happen to be honest. And I recall
No, no, no.
Southampton when they were in the league also losing with some big scoreline also. So it has happened before, it's rare, but it do tend to happen, especially maybe if teams are down to 10 men or, something odd of the sort. But for sure,
I mean,
time is the master, the ball is round. So
I think I think it was the 2022-2023 season we did see Liverpool beat Man United 7-0 at Anfield, I think it was.
was it 7 or 6? I'm not
No,
sure. I'm not even
7-0. I
sure.
think it was 7-0 at
Right. So
Anfield.
that's what I'm saying. It do happen from time to time. It
No,
do
no.
happen from time to time.
The 9-1 is not that result that happened. It's a shocking result when it happened. Regardless of happening time to time. These are the type of scorelines that kind of shock you.
Yeah, definitely. It has you really talking, make you take a deeper dive at these leagues or at least take a deeper look at
I
that
mean,
football match for sure.
because at some point you must realize the game is lost, and do you not try to stem the flow?
Many variables at play, many variables at play. I would definitely have to take a deep dive into that game to really give a more detailed analysis. But several factors could have been at work. But it is what it is. You just gotta pick up the pieces and move on, so to speak. But another week of EPL football, Christoph, coming to an end, and you could very much say the league is now taking shape somewhat. The cream is rising to the top. But quickly, Christoph, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
It was a good weekend of football. A lot of shocks, in my opinion. Results not going, but as I expected, and probably not to the plan of a lot of these managers. Arne Slot, United, probably getting that win, I think it probably even shocked Ten Hag, to be honest, at this point. Um, I think Erling Haaland is probably upset not to have picked up a third hat trick in a row. But I think this weekend was probably a fair weekend of football, and especially in refereeing, it might have been the best week in refereeing so far in the EPL because the quality of the refereeing has been poor all season, and we haven't heard the FA say anything about it. So, um,
Indeed. And I must say, shout out to Duran and Barnes, two wicked strikers of potential goal of the season contenders. To be honest with you, Duran for Aston Villa, a magnificent blast from way outside the 18-yard box, maybe about 24 yards out. And that was a magnificent goal
I mean,
versus Everton, it was, I believe.
definitely a brilliant strike, but I feel like that Hudson Ado strike might be up there as well, to be honest.
I would definitely give the Duran. Hudson Odoi, great strike, no doubt. But for me, Duran, at this point in time, he is my leading contender for goal of the season. You know, that Duran strike versus Everton. And he has been one of those players on fire, coming off the bench and really getting amongst the goals, and Aston Villa looking like a team to beat at this point in time. But thanks again, Christoph, for coming on board and really sharing your thoughts and your opinions. Viewers and subscribers, thank you again for tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Thanks again for sharing, like, and of course, leaving your comments. We're pushing towards 500 subscribers, and you can help us to do that, accomplish that goal by sharing. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.